I saw the 7 days, the 7 planets, the 7 metals, the 7 chakras. And everything in your life is happening because of these laws, the laws by which God speaks to you. 7 is one of the few signatures in which God writes in plain sight. Welcome everybody, this is Aeon, and today you are here to come to dance with the divine. I do believe that there is no coincidences, and probably the serendipities, the synchronicities, absolutely everything happens so that you can be here receiving this divine frequency and this divine transmission. Now, probably you're someone that has been in the healing industry and you have been doing the healing, the transformation, you have been doing all the things, but something is still missing. Perhaps you are at the very beginning. You're at the very beginning of the stages of like understanding who you are, what is that you are here, or maybe you are a little bit more advanced and you have already done the certifications, you have already done the courses, you already know that you are meant for something greater, but there is something that is still holding you back. And today, across this training, I'm going to be bringing concepts that they are very, very deep and that they carry codes of knowledge, that they will open new doors and new possibilities for you. Think about being able to see the mathematical formulas of how everything in the universe was created by God. Now, across this training, you're going to see me jumping between my notes and between the material that I'm going to be bringing it to you. Because as I said, there is a heavy material here designed for you. And you also have, along the material of this course, you should have also received your student guide. You can either use it across as I am giving the training, or you can have the student guide so that you can use it before or after the training. Now, shall we start? Across the training, you're going to learn more about me. I don't want to pitch you. I don't want to be telling you like this is what I have done and that's what has happened. I just simply want you to be present with what you need to hear and listen today, and we're going to start from there. So you might be wondering, what is the dance with the divine? At the very beginning, when I was actually thinking about, what is something that I want to birth into the world that hasn't been created, that hasn't been just another copy and paste. I was in the coaching and the mentoring industry for 5 years, and I can tell you that the amount of times that I was simply given scripts, given documents, and being told you can use this and you can sell this, and I felt so out of integrity because I knew that it wasn't coming from my soul. What you are seeing here is 7 years of deep study, deep research, deep understanding with alchemy, with the Kabbalah, with Hermetism, with all these different laws of the universe and spirituality. But something that shifted in my life was the moment that I realized that I was highly spiritual, that I had the knowledge, that I have the word in, that I could speak, but my life was so out of integrity because I didn't have the identity of what required me to be seated here bringing this knowledge to you so that you can also tap within the divine essence of who you are, and you can understand how you're going to be led and guided across these 90 minutes, which are, I guarantee you that they're going to transform the way that you think about yourself, about God, and reality itself. Now, we're going to start with the first part, right? I'm going to be talking a little bit about identity transformation. So I'm going to be tapping within understanding what is identity, how are we going to be dissolving the false identity, how you can return to your core self, which is your divine essence. After that, we're going to be talking about a little bit revealing the root cause, The problem is not strategies. It is identity. The problem is that you don't need any more healing. You need to shift your frequency. The problem is that you keep on operating from an old self-concept that is no longer serving you, that it was never meant to be yours. But being the new, becoming the new, transforming into this new identity, into this new resonance, it's scary. Because it means that we need to let go absolutely everything of what we have ever been told. And today you're going to learn how you can do that and how you're going to be moving in life now that you understand these laws. And the phase 3 is the three-plane activation. Most of the programs, they operate either at the mental level or at the spiritual level or at the spirit level, but they don't work as a whole. And what I have brought here, which was literally given to me from the divine so that I can pass it on to you, it's a system that operates from the three of them. Now, what I am going to be delivering in this next 90 minutes, first, it is the sacred architecture. You need to understand how this system operates. You see this star at, in the background. It is a 7-pointed star, which forms an heptagram. And today you're going to be learning and understanding how that heptagram is linked to absolutely everything that was created in this system. So here I'm going to be taking you through understanding layers of your body, of your soul, of your spirit. We're going to understand the mechanisms of how your body, how your soul, how your spirit are alchemized in one same movement. You're going to be understanding the what. As I said, this is a full-on cosmological transmission that has literally been downloaded through God for you. And then in the second step, we're going to move into the journal, meeting the divine. So many of us struggle with control. So many of us struggle with letting go and learning how to surrender. What I have designed here is a journal that takes, I have condensed my base from neuro-linguistic programming, from hypnotherapy, from really understanding how the subconscious works. And through a set of questions, we're going to be meeting our subconscious mind so that we can understand and we can see how we can learn to surrender, how we can learn to be so connected and so to have certainty beyond logic so that we can trust in God and build this bridge that will allow miracles to happen in our lives, because that's why you are here. You have big dreams, you know that you have a big mission, you know that you are ready for the miracles, and things need to unfold. And believe me, straight after this, things are going to start unfolding in your life in ways you could have never imagined. And after that, I'm going to be taking you in a guided 30 minutes experience, which is called the surrender activation. Here, it is a divine transmission where I will be channeling God. I will be simply bringing everything that I have been given with hypnotherapy, with neuro-linguistic programming, with timeline therapy principles. I'm going to be activating within your body directly a way for you to lose the grip so that you can stop controlling and you can start opening the channel through which God moves. It's not a visualization. It is a directed somatic and unconscious level practice that will create new physiological conditions in which surrendering is possible. Now, we're going to be moving into the next one. So, you're not stuck because you're doing things wrong. You are simply exactly where you're at because perhaps you have done the work and the shift didn't hold. You did the retreat, you did the plant medicine, you did the cacao ceremony, you did the full moon ceremony, but things are not unfolding. You have done all the manifestation courses, but you're still in the exact same way. Some of it cracked open, some of it broke you apart, but none of it stayed. And you're not missing information, you are missing identity. You are missing a new frequency and you are missing a self-image. Now, the healing keeps revealing, but your life stays the same. So this is not a healing problem. I often call, especially people that they have started their own healing journey, they get trapped into the healing personality. And later on, you will understand what does this actually mean. But basically, what does it actually feel, this false identity in real life? Every single day, you shrink because before anyone asks you, you start shrinking. You start doubting yourself. Your intuition is telling you something, but yet you decide to follow your logic and do not listen to your intuition. And then you end up experiencing something that probably you knew that you didn't want to experience. But there you go, and you go over and over and over. You start over-explaining your existence, you start over-explaining your choices, your beliefs. You start performing a version of you that is simply seeking approval, whether if it's at work, whether if it's with your family, whether if it's with love. You just keep on pretending to be someone that you are not. And I did this for so many years in my life. For, the last 12 years, studying a career that I thought was going to make me happy, thinking that getting the titles were going to make me happy, thinking that having the recognition was going to make me happy, and none of it worked. And the reason why none of it worked was because I simply kept on acting from an old frequency, from a false identity that was no longer what I needed to create a new reality, what I needed to be able to connect with God in such a profound way that miracles happen in my life every single day. You keep on hiding from the big gift. Perhaps some of you might have been the black sheep of the family, because I used to be one. And at the very beginning, being the black sheep was something that brought shame into my life. Being the black sheep was something that I wasn't really proud of in my life. Until eventually I realized that that was my very unique gift. The fact that I wanted to be the rebel, that I didn't want to simply follow what everybody else told me that I should be following, brought me into this place right now to be able to be talking and bringing this to you. You keep on saying yes when your soul says no. You keep on making plans even when you feel like you don't want to be doing it, just because you wanted to be nice. For so many years, I kept myself stuck in being the nice person. I remember at work, I struggled when people didn't like me. And I had to shapeshift myself. I have to change. I have to shrink so that others can like me, because I wanted to be liked by everybody. I even remember once my colleague, she said, "I'm feeling so sad for you right now because you want to be liked by everybody." You keep on disappearing from your own body before someone else makes you small. Healing, transmuting, changing, transforming. It actually requires so that you step up as the leader. And you not only speak nicely, but you actually start acting with integrity. And if you feel called out right now, that is exactly what it needs to happen. Because for things to change, you need to become conscious. And once the subconscious is conscious, then there is no way that you're not going to change. So today you're going to be learning and discovering many, many things that perhaps are going to be a little bit hard. Perhaps they're going to be challenging. Perhaps you're going to start projecting things that they have absolutely nothing to be with me. Because here I am simply being the channel so that you can receive the information that needs to be received by you and by your soul. What happens here is that most of us, and the reason why you're here is because you have been living a smaller life than the one that God wanted you to live. That the one that God said, I'm going to be giving you the visions, I'm going to be giving you absolutely everything so that you can be able to live that life. But when we see the vision, it is too big. It makes us feel like we are so far away from it that we just simply stop and we go back into the same old self. Now, your false identity is not your enemy, but think about it as an armor, right? But you have been wearing this armor for so long that it started to feel like your skin. And what we're doing today with everything that you're going to be learning is we're going to be simply removing the skin. We're going to be simply removing the armor so that the new you can be born. Now, many of you probably have seen how snakes or chameleons actually work when they start expanding, right? Like their skin starts being too small for who they are. Now imagine if a snake said, I don't want to let go of my skin. I will actually carry it with me my entire life. She will be uncomfortable. She will not like it. Things will get stuck between her and the skin. She doesn't. Now, another example that I can give it to you is just think about the sun, because we're going to be talking about the planets and the sun and the moon today. What will it be like if the sun said, I will just want to check if the humans are actually happy of me showing up. And if they're not happy, today I'm not gonna show up. The sun keeps on showing up relentlessly, regardless of what we think about him. So today we're gonna stepping in fully in that identity, into understanding how do I operate, how God operates, and how do I build the bridge so that I can be the channel, so that I can be transmitting absolutely everything that I was meant to be transmitting here, and I can be fully tapped in my mission, in my purpose, in doing things that are actually meaningful and that they serve and help others. Because there is nothing much more the feeling that it gives into my life, what it brings into my life, knowing that this work is simply being there transmuted and sent over hundreds and thousands of people. That's all that I need. Now, if you find it that this is calling you out and that you're feeling triggered, just stay, because it's just the very beginning of the process. Now, I'm going to be talking about why inner work alone hasn't been enough. Yeah. A lot of people, as I said, whether you're just starting your healing journey or you have done hundreds and thousands of different healing modalities and healing courses and you're still in the same position, right? What happens is that awareness without integration collapses under pressure, right? So you start feeling pressure, as I said, to show up, to start talking the talk, to start acting as a completely different person, and then you collapse because there's just too much pressure. Spiritual experiences without a structure, they produce catharsis, not change. Now, the amount of times that I saw people going into plant medicine retreats and their life changed and shifted and transformed, and for 1-2 weeks they felt so connected to the divine and so much with peace. But straight after those 2 weeks, they get stuck in traffic and they start screaming at people. They go to a restaurant where they are not served properly and they get mad with the waiter. They forget of absolutely everything that they have ever been told with the ancestral medicine, and they go back straight into the same. You can see the truth and you still act from the old pattern because it's just simply easier. We love comfort. Your ego, your conscious mind loves comfort. So even though you know that you're living in misalignment, it's easier to keep on doing the same thing than actually change, because change is scary. Now this pattern not only lives in your body, right? Probably some of you might have heard about Joe Dispenza, and he explains and he says that, our hormones, our physique, it's all designed to keep the old identity, the old you alive. Because now your body has become addicted to the chemicals that the brain releases. Now it also becomes stuck in the soul, because with your soul, like from your soul, is where your personality is born, and your personality is your personal reality, right? And your spirit is connected to the mind, to the divine. And all of them are connected simultaneously. That's why this system was so freaking magical, because after years of studying alchemy, then I finally understood, and I was like, wait a minute. We are not just body, we are mind and we are soul. And we have been told this, like, I remember even at a school, I was told about this principle, but I couldn't understand. And now it finally made sense. But what it's needed, it needs a system so that God can be present in all these three planes all at once, so that you can hold the capacity for receiving, for you to be able to become the person that you have been looking to become, right? Now, we're going to be moving into the next one. The dance you were built for, right? The work is not to figure it out. The work is to let God in. God is not a metaphor. He is the choreographer. The dance is what happens when you know that the laws, like once you understand the laws and you stop fighting against it, when you stop going against the current and you go with the flow of the current, when you learn to surrender. But surrendering doesn't mean that you're losing. When you let the grip off and you let control go, that's when you allow God to come into your life. Because right now, what has been happening, and most of you have been doing, is like, even if you have done your vision boards, even if you have done, like if you have pictured the life that you want to be dreaming of, your conscious mind, your old identity, your false identity starts telling you, like, this is how you should be moving. This is what you should be doing. This is the amount of people that you should be selling, or the amount of hours that you should be working, so that you can then get what you need. But God said it was never meant to be that hard. So surrendering is the first thing that we need so that we can go back into our power. Because you were never built to live alone. You were built to dance, and you were built to dance with the divine. Now, what we do this is basically we build an initiation into the actual operating laws that God uses to move the universe. A way of placing themselves inside that movement instead of against it. Remember when I said you're going to be going with the current instead of trying to go against it. The dance is the form. Surrender is the posture. God is the one that leads. Now, we're going to understand, within these 90 minutes, we're going to be understanding the architecture of God's movement. So in these 90 minutes of this initiation, right, you're going to be understanding the sevenfold architecture of reality. You're going to be led into a doorway, which is activation codes, code within, a 7-day initiation that comes after this, where all these 7 ancient frameworks that you're going to be learning today, that they are not separated, that they're actually working together, that they work with your body, with your soul, with your spirit, salt, sulfur, and mercury at the same time. We're going to be then led into understanding how we can move into experiencing each one of these systems day by day in 7 days, that they're going to completely transform your life. Now, this is not a spiritual education. This is a precision mechanism for letting God in. When I was, part of my journey was that for so many years I couldn't connect with God. I couldn't connect and even understand God because it was so difficult for me to grasp the concept. Because when I was a kid, I remember I was forced to go to church, and then I used to see like my family calling the name of God, but yet acting in completely opposite ways, without integrity. I saw that they used the name of God to do malicious and bad things. So of course I was completely disconnected, and for years I tried to connect. I went to Buddhism, I went to Krishna, I went to so many other religions. I even ended up in the United States, I think back when I was like 20, 21, and I was in this church. And I remember in the church, they wanted me to become a pastor. They said that that was my pathway. But eventually they wanted to change me. And then I said, if God loves us, regardless of what we like, of who we are, of how we do things, if he's constantly being a presence, ever-loving force, why do I need to adapt to myself? So then I ended up running away from all these religions because I said it's all the same. So I'm going to be a spiritualist and I'm going to focus in my spiritual path. And I used to call the infinite creator, and I used to call the universe. And I will try praying, but I will find no connection with praying because I was praying to the universe. And then eventually something shifted, something changed. I was tired of listening to the nonsense of the spiritual community, and I decided that something needed to be done. Hence, my work was born. Everything out of me made sense in my life once I let go in. And I want you to think about, like, he is just waiting there. I want you to imagine that you have your house. Your house is your temple, your body. And there is a door, a main door. Now God has been always waiting outside there, waiting to be invited to come in. But because we have all these filters, all this connection, all these ideas of what God is, we haven't let God fully enter into our soul, into our body, so that He can show us who we really are. Because the power is not in the external, the power is not in the healing sessions, the power is not in the things that you think that they are going to make your life change. The power relies within you. And we're going to be moving next to understanding the heptagram, how all this was birthed. Because after years of like practicing alchemy, which I didn't even know that I was practicing, after years of practicing with the Kabbalah, and I remember at the very beginning with my first Kabbalah book, I even got, in this book there was a ritual, and I was so excited for the ritual because I thought it was the external what was going to help me change. And I got everything, and I had my altar, and I had my black dagger, and I had everything sorted, and every single morning I will do the ritual, and I will wait for my light to change. And I waited for 5 years and nothing changed until my life almost got taken away. And that was the moment that I hear God speaking to me very directly for the first time. So back in November 2024, when I had an accident and I ended up in an ambulance, and I ended up in Australia in a hospital where they didn't wanted even to check me because I was too drunk to say that I had an insurance, and they couldn't figure it out all. So they just kept me in a bed. And as I was there, and I said, like, God, like, I know that I am meant for so much more. And God said, what are you waiting for? And that's when I got the balls to leave absolutely everything behind in my life, to simply say, you know what, this is it. I am simply done. I am simply done with the healing, with the thousands and hundreds of dollars invested in personal development that they were not getting me where I wanted to be. Because I was completely disconnected from my soul, from my mind, from my spirit, going in 3 different directions. And right now that is exactly happening to you. Your soul goes in one direction, your body moves in a different one, and your spirit goes in a completely different one. And then you wonder, why am I like this? Why things are happening to me despite of the healing, all the things that I have done? Enough is enough. So in the next following minutes, I recommend you, if you're watching this, simply pause the video. If you need to go to the toilet, if you need to go to do something, keep distractions out. I recommend you to turn the phone off. If you have family or friends, or if you're going to be interrupted, let them know that you're going to be studying, because over the next minutes, you're going to be receiving one of the most deepest ancient tools that they have been all around us since the day we were born and you weren't aware of. Now, here it comes, the juicy part. 7 is not coincidence. 7 is God's signature. I remember when this information came up, right? Like one night I heard divine codes. And 5 years ago I heard divine essence. And I couldn't understand what was this all about, because there was many pieces that needed to fall into place, right? So I started asking God, and I said, God, I need you to show me and to guide me towards what is that I'm going to be birthing. What is that I'm going to be bringing into the world that it literally comes and it's channeled through. And I received divine codes, and I remember that night I was going to go and keep on watching Netflix. And then I listened, no, take your notebook and you start from there. So I grabbed my notebook and I was like, okay. And then I heard 7. And I was like, okay. And then I was lost. And then I heard, go to your book of alchemy and you will know. I went to the book, I opened the book, and I was just in awe. because the moment that I opened it, it said exactly part of what the system is about. I saw the 7 days, the 7 planets, the 7 metals, the 7 chakras, everything all interconnected. And then I understood, and I was like, whoa, like that, these are the rules of how everything is formed, and we don't even know, we don't even understand. And if we were able to understand, 7 has been everywhere, across every ancient system: Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, Hebrew, Hindu, Christian, Hermetic. 7 is one of the few signatures in which God writes in plain sight. He created, even the Bible says, He created absolutely everything in 7 days. So that's when I started digging deeper, and I knew that it was all about alchemy, Kabbalah, Hermetism. And by bringing everything, all the pieces together, by literally, I have a picture, a drawing that I'm going to be sending it to you so you can see how all this was born. And I had this grab, and I was simply drawing and making lines and putting things together. And after a while, I was like, whoa, like that is so deep. So what this contains: 7 days of creation, right? The sacred rhythm, 7 classical planets, the visible architecture of the heavens, 7 metals, the material anchors of transformation, 7 chakras, the energetic centers of the body, the 7 hermetic principles, which I call the divine laws, because they govern absolutely everything. And everything in your life is happening because of these laws, the laws by which God speaks to you. 7 notes in the musical octave, because even the planets, they have vibration and sound. So as you can see, 7 is not a coincidence, right? This has been the way that God has been talking to us all along, and we have lost this disconnection. It is the divine song that is constantly tuning into your life. But because we are so disconnected, such in a completely different frequency, we get lost. And you might be wondering, but where is this all leading to me? Remember when I was saying at the beginning, we need to make the unconscious conscious. And once you understand how these rules operate, what is it about each one of these things that I'm going to be teaching you, everything is going to fall place. Everything is going to be falling into place. Now, the heptagram. So think about like God's map. Each point, right, corresponds to one day. So I'm going to be showing you here with a pointer. Each point corresponds to one day, right? Now, each day corresponds to one planet, one stage, one metal. The crossing lines between a state and a state are how they navigate. And the navigation system is the way you navigate across 7 days, where you can find yourself, where are you in the map? And later on, you're going to be seeing how one of these days is the hardest one, and one of these days is the most, where you feel the most complete and the more whole and divine. Now I simply want you to observe at the geometry. Observe to what this system is telling you. And by observing it, you're going to start getting the geometric expression of the entire system. Since the Babylonian period, we have been ruling the days like this. Saturday is Saturn's day. Saturday literally comes from Saturn. Monday comes from Moon. Lundi in French. Lunes in Spanish. Friday comes from Venus. Vendredi, Viernes. These are not modern conventions. These are the oldest and most continuous cosmologies in existence since we existed as humans. So when you work with Saturday, on a Saturday, you're not creating an alignment. You're stepping into a current that has been moving since long before language was written. Now, what I'm going to be giving you is a complete system at glance. And what you can see here is how everything basically gets formed. We have the days, which I have been speaking about. We have the planets. We have the nodes. We have the stages. We have the phase. We have the metal. We have the chakras. We even have the divine laws. And we have the planes in which we will be working. Now, everything is interconnected, as you can see. Saturday is connected with Saturn, which then connects with node B, one of the heaviest nodes. And then we move into calcination, the first process of alchemy, which is in the black phase. Later on, I'm going to be explaining what are these phases, which is connected to lead, one of the first metals. What does it actually mean? And it's connected to your root chakra. Why the root chakra? And then we're going to talk about the law, mentalism. What does it actually mean, mentalism? And then you will understand where, in which plane are we going to be working. So remember that I told you that we were going to be working in the physical plane, in the spiritual plane, and in the soul plane. So now you can see how all this system was all interconnected all along. And I didn't discover the whole system, but it was literally brought through a transmission so that I can place the pieces together. And once we understand how reality, right, like many of you probably have seen Matrix. And in the Matrix, we see that how reality is being coded, right? There is all these codes. Now imagine that all those codes are this system. And those codes lead directly into God consciousness, God as a source, God as a living proof that if you understand this, you can literally change the way you perceive yourself, the way that you see yourself, the way that you have been believing about yourself, because everything can absolutely change if you simply allow to follow this through. Now, everything in this table will make sense by the end of the masterclass. Every column is a foundation. Every column is one of the ways that God is reaching out to you. And we are about to unpack each one by one. And we're going to be moving into the 7 chakras. Now, most systems teach you root to crown as a ladder of ascent. What I have built with this system is that it has been deliberately non-linear, because the sequence follows where the full identity is and where it's actually stored in the body. Each day activates a specific chakra where that day's surrender must happen. Every day we're going to be working, Saturday is the root, Sunday is the crown, Monday is your third eye, Tuesday is connected to the solar plexus, Wednesday is the throat, Thursday is the sacral, and Friday is the heart. And the most interesting thing that I found here is that we go from bottom to the top. And then we go one step down, and then we go back down. And then you go up, and then you go once more down, and then you finish in the heart. How incredible is that? Now, some of you might have knowledge about chakras. Some of you might have heaps of knowledge around it. What I'm going to be giving you here is just a glimpse of what this whole system means. Because in the 7-day activation, that's where we go deeper into understanding the knowledge behind and the deeper aspects. So with Saturday, right? Well, I'm going to be bringing the pointer once more. So Saturday, day 1, right? Connected to the root or Muladhara. Saturday is connected to Saturn. Saturn governs the root. So here's where your survival patterns, your most foundational identity structures are born. The physical grounding of who we believe we are allowed to be. A lot of people in the spiritual community have disconnected completely from the root. That's why they live having incredible ideas and an incredible vision, but nothing absolutely happens because they have even felt that they have transcended the human experience. When you came to be human, darling, when you came to be rooted. Now, calcination, which is the first process of alchemy, begins in the root. Because here is where the performing self has made its most permanent home. Here is where your the side of you that is constantly performing has created a safe space. And before any burning can happen, the fire must reach the foundation. That's why with Saturday, we turn the fire on. Now Sunday governs the crown, which means coagulation. It's basically the recognition of the philosopher's stone, the highest state, right? The crown. And it activates the crown because here's where the unified consciousness recognizes that is one and its love with God. Because think about the sun. The sun doesn't reflect light. It generates it. So on Sunday, we also initiate ourselves. Now Monday is the third eye, Ashna. The moon is connected to the third eye, and it's the ruler of the third eye. So here is where the distillation process starts. We start refining the quality of the work that we need to be done. Here is the seat of our perception, of the inner vision. And all this process, what it's actually making is like it's turning the darker parts of you into the most profound and golden parts. That's why it exists the concept of the philosopher's stone that you're going to understand later. Now the moon role is to simply reveal through silver, through that mirror that it creates, what it's genuinely yours. And what God placed you here from the beginning. Now Tuesday, right, is governed by Mars. And Mars governs the solar plexus or Manipura. So here is where we take decisions. But Mars doesn't hesitate, neither does Tuesday. Mars has this very energy that it almost, all the wars around the world are ruled by Mars. Because it has that force and fierce capacity. So when it's not used properly, you have an inner Mars ruling your life that is constantly telling you you're not doing enough, you're not good enough. It's constantly in an inner battle because it hasn't been integrated and used in the way that it should. Now Wednesday, the throat, or Vishuddha, here Mercury governs the throat. And Mercury is one of the most interesting elements, and you will understand later why. But here is basically where the new identity must find its voice. Before the mind has finished editing it, Mercury is the messenger. Mercury has directly correlation with ether, with the spirit, right? So the communication is so sharp that here's how you learn that God is communicating to you. Over the years, I have been learning to discern whether if it's my ego speaking, my mind is speaking, or God is speaking. And when you hear God, it's so sharp and it's just like, bam! Now, by working with Mercury, by working with your throat, you're going to learn, right? About your inner knowing and about your outer expression. Now, Thursday is related to the sacral. Jupiter governs the sacral. Dissolution is the process that happens here. Now here is where the original seed of the creative identity and the emotional truth is held. But what happened is that we suppress it beneath the performance, beneath like trying to pretend to be someone that we are not, and we want to control. So we start suppressing all this, which is also connected with your sexual energy, right? Now on Friday, we finish with the heart. The heart chakra, Anahata, is governed by Venus. And it talks about the conjunction process in alchemy, which is the sacred marriage of all opposites. It's kind of like, well, all your lower chakras and all your upper chakras are married into one whole consciousness. It's the protector and the priestess. It's the strategist and the soul. It is the masculine and the feminine, all meet here. And it's ruled by copper. Copper can transmit so much electricity, right? But later on we will understand more about the metals. Now I want you to see how all this is interconnected, right? Because basically where we are moving next, right, is that alchemy was never only about turning physical lead into gold, right? What we know from alchemy is that in ancient times, the alchemists, they were all trying to turn lead into gold, trying to turn into gold and find the philosopher's stone. But that was the physical alchemy. But every single alchemist also went through a mental alchemy, which is what we bring in today, what I have been so fascinated of. Because every single time we are going through a process of alchemy that we don't even realize which process are we in, what is happening and what must happen so that I can transmute whatever I am feeling and turn it into gold. Because the philosopher's stone is the fully integrated self-gold that it was always intended to be. And you cannot skip stages because each one of them is basically, bringing you into the next one. Now, Bremer, in the Hermetic Philosophy and Creative Alchemy book, she says, the alchemical tradition in its primary Hermetic texts, the Corpus Hermeticum, the Emerald Tablet, and the Hangnomandi Codices, they establish alchemy as direct means for accessing higher consciousness and true self-knowledge, which is gnosis, because it extracts the essence of one's own gifts. Now imagine if we simply had the capacity and the knowledge to be able to extract our own essence, so that you can become your own alchemist and you can have the answers for everything that you have been seeking. You finally stop relying on the external, but you become and you awaken the divine essence of who you are. How incredible is that? Awakening to this essence means everything else in your reality must change permanently. Now we're going to start with the phases one by one. I'm going to be brief because I don't have time to explain to you everything that I have. It is a heavy base knowledge training, but it's going to serve you and it's going to simply transform absolutely everything that you have been doing so far. So hang on with me. Now the calcination part, which is the first one, and it's related to the black phase. You will see that there is a black phase, a red phase, and a white phase, and I will talk to you right now, and then we're going to be moving into, as you can see, right, black phase, white phase. Let me bring the pointer. Your black phase in the bottom, then we move into the white phase and then into the red phase. Now, what does it mean in alchemy? The black phase, it's considered the nigredo, right? Calcination and dissolution. This is the stages of decomposition and confrontation with the shadow, the necessary darkness before the new can emerge. Now, some of you might be saying like, but I am tired of shadow work. I am simply done. Well, what happens is, like most of you probably, you confronted your shadows and you understood, but you never integrated it. You never realized that that shadow had a gift that needed to be a code that needed to be integrated. for you to be able to see things differently. And I will give you an example. For so many years, I struggled with this shadow aspect of me that I couldn't really grasp how, like, why I was so attracted to the physical human being. Like, the prettiest they were, the more they will catch my attention, and I will be so distracted, and I will be having work meetings, and if someone cute pass by, I will be so distracted, and I will say, like, why am I always focusing only in the physical? And it was a shadow aspect of mine. Through understanding, through doing the alchemical process, through accepting it and encoding it within me, I realized that the gift behind was that I had a very unique capacity of being able to see the light within people that goes beyond the physical. So when I started seeing it as a gift and asking God to activate the gift within, to allow me to see through my eyes the light in people, something magically happened. I will be in groups, I will be in events, and I will be able to see the light. Like, something different happened. I remember the first time. I was just seated in a big conference room, and I said, God, allow me to see the light. Like, this is my gift, and now I want to be using it. And it allowed me to connect with people, to see people in such a different way, because I alchemized it and I made it part of me. Now, the uncomfortable clarity proceeds with genuine change. If you get stuck in the black phase, you get stuck in denial, you get stuck in projections, and you cannot overcome anything in life. Now, the red phase, the rubedo, right, is the coagulation, the distillation, and the fermentation. And here, first of all, I wanted to look at it by the colors. Don't worry about the position of this, yeah? The red phase talks about emerging from what has survived the burning. So once we move into, once we have burned, then we must move into the heat of transformation. And that is when God starts revealing. And then we move into the white phase, right? Which, think about, we go through this phase, which then goes into the red phase, which then is condensed into the white. The white phase is the separation and conjunction. And this is the precise refinement and integration, the silver clarity of what has been sorted, the union of all the opposites into a unified whole. So here is where all the aspects of you that they were denied, that you have suppressed, the gifts that you have always been carrying, they are all brought into one. And the way that I see it is, like, once we integrate, we stop being the little flame. We actually become a massive flame that allows himself, herself, to be ever present, to be so divinely guided by God, and to have so much confidence, so much power, so much of the ability of trusting and knowing what you are meant to be doing here in this earth, that nothing stops you. And as I said, understanding the way this alchemy works, right, which now we're going to be checking phase by phase, it's going to give you a great advantage, because now you understand the language of how everything is unfolding in reality. Think about seeing reality not as a mirror of what is happening, not as reality dictating who you are based on what you see, but you simply see it as a way. Think about, like, having filters, right? Like right now, for example, I have a cup, and probably you cannot see my face, but because the cup is in my face, and if I tell you there is a pen in the middle, you're not going to believe it to me. It might be, or it might not be. If I remove it, it's revealed. So this, that has always been there, right? Think about, the pen is all these rules that they have been there. The planets, everything that I have been teaching you so far. But you haven't been able to see it because you could only see the cup. Now these rules, the pen is what it's ruling absolutely everything around. Now the calcination, the fire, the black phase. Basically here is where we burn the false identity. We turn it into ash. And a lot of people will think, like, but why are you going to destroy something? In order to be born in alchemy, everything needs to be turned into ashes, right? Once we turn everything into ashes, we build a new ground. Because you have built your life in a false self, with a false ground. Relationships maintained out of fear. Work taken for approval. The version of you that others expect you to be. So what we do here is we understand, what is my old identity? What is my new identity? What must be born into ashes from the old so that it completely can be released and you can move into be that new person? Now, the second one is coagulation, or the red phase. Here is the solidification of what has been purified. And for this, obviously, once you follow classical alchemy, again, as I said, once you follow the classical approach, it moves from phase to phase, from black to red to white. But this system integrates them all into unity, because it works far beyond just alchemy. It integrates the planets, your chakras, the metals. Now, coagulation, right, which is the solidification of what has been purified. The philosopher's stone recognized as already present, not a future achievement, not waiting for reality to basically reveal itself so that I can finally say, I am that person, but you dictating how reality should be shaping. Understanding that everything is already within you and that you have the capacity to integrate the self-gods and make it visible. Here is the declaration of the true self. The origin of the story rewritten from gold instead of lead. And you will understand once I explain about the metals, right? Now, the next one is distillation, which also belongs to the red phase, and it's connected to Mercury. Here is the reflective refinement of what remains after the fire, the moon's silver mirror, showing precisely what is genuinely yours. The core truth refined to its irreducible essence. The words, the work, the relationships, the choices that finally sound like the soul returning them. Here's when you start understanding how life starts mirroring you the things and the means and the ways of how you move. I remember when I started working with this concept, I asked God and I said, God, show me the way. Like, show me when it is a no. I really need to know when is it a no. Because for so many years, I kept on agreeing and saying yes and getting, like overwhelmed and tired of like trying to prove to people. And I remember I was in a conference with millionaires, people that they were doing incredible in business, incredible in their mission, incredible in their impact. And as I was sat there, God showed me one of the very, very clear insights, or like a no for me. He said, every single time that you're feeling a rush, it's a no. And I felt like all these people, they were pursuing their dreams and the big things in their life from a place of rushing, from a place of like not being ever enough. And that's when I realized, and I was able to integrate this phase into my life. Now we move into separation, which it represents air, and it's the Y phase. The precise sorting of the real form, the performed, right? Here's the capacity to distinguish with your own signals from the noise of conditioning, the comparison, the borrowed beliefs. Here's where you realize, the obligations that they never belong to you, the inherited beliefs that they were never yours, the strategies that they were never yours, the wrong fits in relationships that you were never meant to have. Here's where the filter is lifted and you can see and you can clearly say, oh, wait a minute. If I am not all this that I have been creating all around, then I do have the capacity to create something completely different, because I can detach if there is a separation, right? Like if you realize that there is an obvious separation between the two identities, right? This is who you have been your entire life. And then now you can see that this is the new one. But the new one has new relationships, new beliefs, new ways of believing about itself. Then you realize that this is no longer needed. And then we bring the fermentation, which is the dark night and the rebirth occurring simultaneously. The new identity beginning to speak before the mind has finished editing. How beautiful is it? It's volatile, it's generative, is alive, unscripted words, those bold moves, the most magnetic version of you breaking through, because it is as if you finally realize and you say, wow, I have been doing this for so many years and I finally feel free. I feel free to say the things of how I want them to be said. I feel free to have a voice. I feel free to say no. I feel free to let go of relationships that they no longer serve me. And here is where you start becoming magnetic, where things are brought into you, where God says, hey, you have been expanding your vessel, right? Like what this process does, it simply helps you expand yourself. And because now you have the capacity to hold more, God starts showing up in ways that you could have never ever possibly imagined. And then we move into the dissolution, the water, the black phase, which is the surrender of the controlling will. Here you learn how to let God lead and to ride the tide rather than fighting it. Where you finally said, for so many years I was trying to go against the current. When everything in life was about going with the flow. And once you said, you know, God, I simply surrender into the waters of the divine, and I let myself taken to wherever I am meant to be taken. And because you have made the inner work, you have made it already through. You have gone through phase, through phase, through phase. Here is when you realize that if things are taken away from you, instantly, they are taken away for a reason. And that there is a higher purpose and a higher meaning for this. And that things are revealed in ways that you couldn't have possibly ever imagined. Because you are letting God guide the way. You're understanding that if you were placed doing something, like if you were placed here, listening to this, understanding all this knowledge, it is for a reason. And at the end, we move into conjunction, which carries the element of earth, the white phase. And here in conjunction, we basically marry all the opposites. The masculine and the feminine, the protector and the priestess, the king and the queen. A strategy and depth, doing and being. The integrated human creating from a magician frequency. All the tools present, all the tools bridge. Because here you understand that you have the capacity to create absolutely everything that you have ever dreamed of. And once you understand that you have the capacity, right, to create anything that you have ever dreamed of, then you know that you are in charge. And because you are now an open channel and you allow God to channel through you, to speak through you, to create through you, now you know exactly when those actions must be taken. You know exactly when you must trust your gut feeling. And to give you some context around it, 2 months ago, this ad pop up and I saw that Ken Onda was coming to Bali. And at that time, I didn't have the money. I didn't have like the means to like go and pay for this training with him. However, my intuition was telling me like, bro, just go. You're going to find the way and everything is going to work out. So at the end, I received the confirmation and I decided to go because I listened to it, right? Now, I went to the event. Nothing happened, right? Apparently. Turns out that in the event, I was able to meet someone. And by meeting him, then later on, my intuition told me, you must speak to that person. And I went and I spoke to that person, and an opportunity opened up in my life that wasn't even there before. Because I trusted. Because I had the magician frequency, right? I had the God's frequency. All these codes, all these things that I have been teaching you so far activated within me so that I can understand, this is how reality moves. This is how I move. And now we're going to be moving into the 7 days and their planets. Now, God has choreographer. He built this choreography, this beautiful symphony where 7 is ever present. And I understand how this is connected to, like how each metal is connected to each planet. So here there are the foundations, right? Like planets and metals. The calendar. It has 7 classical planets governed day 7 since the Babylonian times, like I explained. Saturday, Saturn, Monday, Moon, you already know. Then we have the alignment. Working with the planetary energies on the correct day steps you into a current already moving. Then the matter. Each planet corresponds to a specific metal. The metal is the physical anchor that grounds the frequency in matter. And the arc. The movement from lead, Saturday, to copper, Friday, is the great work. How gold works through matter, not around it. So we're going to be learning how to move into these different metals, how we can use it. Alchemists in the past, they used to carry different metals with them and they will activate them. In one of my books, actually, I have, and there is an exercise where you can learn how to activate with the metal and how you can activate the planet. And you're going to start getting precise information directly downloaded from the knowledge base that we have available all for our own here once you open up the channel. Now, basically, we're going to be using Brenner's titles here. So in her book, right, which is where most of this program is also inspired from, the Hermetic Philosophy and Creative Alchemy. Now, she talks about like Saturn, which is connected to Saturday, and it calls into the darkness. Saturn, right, it governs the structure, the discipline, the revelation of what has been built on a false ground. Saturn does not confirm. Saturn reveals. So when calcination happens on a Saturday, you're using the mirror of this planet to literally show all the darkness, all the things that you have been unwilling to see. And here's where God starts building an armor so that you can be and have the capacity to deal with anything in life. And then Sunday, the essence of eternity, right? It governs identity, the radiance, the recognition of the sovereign self. The sun generates its own light. It does not reflect. In the same way that gold cannot be destroyed. Gold is one of the most valuable metals, and God doesn't need to say, hey, I am gold, by the way. Everyone knows what gold is. And you have the capacity to tap within this metal to understand that you carry gold within. Right? Now, here we understand that the essence of eternity is not something the sun chases. It is what the sun is and what you are beneath the performing. You realize that you are an eternal being, that you are simply having an experience here on earth, and that if you allow yourself to be the channel, you can completely transform your life. Now the moon, Monday, reflections of the unknowable. It governs reflection, cycles, and the subconscious. The moon is the one that rules the subconscious mind. And it reveals through silver. It mirrors what remains after the fire. The moon does not judge what it reflects, it only shows what it is there. So when Monday happens, when we do this work on Monday, you're able to realize that, this was always there. All these projections, they were always mine. The reasons why I feel keep on getting triggered, on getting pissed, it was never about them. It was all about mine. And God has given me the map right in front of me so that I can understand what is that needs to be dying so that the new can be born. Now Mars, Tuesday, the flames of transformation. It governs decisive action, precision, and the courage to cut. As I said, Mars, it doesn't hesitate. Mars is destruction but surgical discernment. Mars goes for it. It doesn't doft. And then we have Mercury, right? A voice from the ether. Mercury governs communication, transmission, and movement between words. That's why every time in astrology you hear, Mercury is in retrograde, and then the communication starts being like a little bit bumpy, weird things start happening, right? Because Mercury is the voice from the ether speaking before the mind has finished editing it. This is where God speaks directly into you. Whenever I am tapped within my Mercury, within the magic of this metal, the communication can happen. Now imagine in the future having a ritual, a daily ritual on a Wednesday, so that you can be at your peak with communication, direct communication with the ether, using the energy so that it can help you towards whatever you want to be doing and creating. Now, the dissolution, right? Like Jupiter on a Thursday, the sovereign storm. It governs expansion, abundance, and paradoxically, the wisdom of surrender. Dissolution on a Thursday is Jupiter's most demanding gift. The sovereign storm that does not rage against the tide. It is the tide. How powerful to realize this. That I was never meant to be going against. That I am the freaking tide. That I have the capacity to be that storm when I need it. So Jupiter teaches you to dance with the storm instead of fighting for it. All your life you have been fighting against your old identity and the new identity. Jupiter says, now you learn how to dance because you're gonna simply become the best, the most incredible dancer ever, because you can build that identity. And then Venus, Friday, right? Which now we are basically, I am explaining so that you can have more context. We are here and we're gonna be moving down. Venus is the joy of creation. It governs love, beauty, magnetism, the conductor of desire, the most electrically alive planetary frequency of the week. On Fridays, somehow, the creative force is there, like if you allow yourself to tap, if you decide to bring the creative arts into your Fridays, you will see how this energy will simply start coming and flowing through you. It is the joy of creation. It is the integrated self-expressing without resistance. It's saying, this is my essence, and I finally have let go of the resistance of hiding away to be approved. And I am finally my fucking self, and you learn to walk as the king and the queen that you are. Now, working with the correct planetary energy on the correct day is alignment. You're not creating the energy from scratch. You are simply stepping into a current that God has placed it. Since before there was language for it, God has left this map saying, here's how you could use it. But because we are so busy and we are with all this noise constantly from everywhere, you forget that you have the divine map to be able to collapse time and reality and create the reality that you have always been dreaming of. Now, Foundation 4. Each planet corresponds to a specific metal, as I explained before. Each metal is a physical anchor, You can touch it, you can wear it, you can place it into your space. Your body responds to these physical objects, especially the metals, as I said from the beginning. The arc is led from Saturday to copper, and is the great work made material. The salt of the body matters because God works through matter, not around it. Yeah. So the metals are the most practically grounded element of the entire system. Every participant, like if you're here, if you want to even go deeper in the 7-day experience, you can bring your own metals and you can start connecting. And I can teach you how to connect with each one of them, how to get the signals that you get it from them so that you can understand how they work. If we are a material body and if we have the metals, which are also material objects, that they are directly interrelated to the planets, how much can we understand how we can use this ancient technology? Now, to make it fast, because we're running out of time, Let is Saturn or Saturday, right? So it talks about the prima materia. The heaviest of the classical metals is dense, is opaque, is raw, unrefined. It's not a symbol of failure, it's simply raw. Raw material in which God will start working with you. The great work cannot start if you're unwilling to acknowledge the darker aspects of yourself, which is the lead. And you cannot transmute what you refuse to name. Very simple. Now, gold is connected to Sunday and to the sun. As I said, gold does not tarnish or diminish. Gold does not need to be created. Gold doesn't need, to prove anything. What gold needs is just to simply be revealed. The philosopher's stone, the gold, is not something that you become. The gold was always there beneath the performing, the proving, the armor. When they are extracting gold was always there. They're not creating it, right? Then we have silver, which is connected to the moon. This is a reflective metal. It does not generate light. It reveals what is already present, the most accurate mirror in the natural world. You hold silver on Monday and you ask, what is genuinely mine after the burning? What did God place me here that I have never had to earn? Right? Like if you ask yourself, again, you're going to start bringing energy towards you from the higher realms, and you will know exactly what is going to happen in your life. How crazy is that? Iron. Iron is connected to Mars and Tuesday. This is the metal of the surgeon and the blacksmith, both of whom cut in service of creation. Iron cuts cleanly and holds its shape. So here is about how can I use iron and make decisive cuts on a Tuesday. Iron makes them permanently. And the cut, which most of the time we are unwilling to do it serves always a higher purpose because it does it with care when it's done it with understanding and with self-compassion. Now, quicksilver, mercury. This is the only metal liquid at room temperature. It cannot be fixed, it cannot be controlled, only directed. Now, on Wednesday, we let the mind be quicksilver, liquid, unattachable, moving through everything without settling into anything permanently. As I said, the voice from the ether is never scripted. God doesn't come to say something in your life. Hey, by the way, this is me, God, and today I want to leave you a message. It simply arrives. Today I ask, what is that I am meant to be doing? What is my soul meant to be doing? It said creation. And here we are. Now Jupiter, tin. Tin is connected to Jupiter and Thursday. The great alloy maker. Tin does not stand alone, right? It joins with other metals to create something stronger than either alone. So for example, bronze is tin and copper. So on Thursday, you let your life touch its true purpose. You let the alloy from without forcing the composition. You let God hold the proportions. So many times in life, we are so freaking, it is so hard to say, God, I actually need a hand. God can act as tin. And when you let God act as tin, God says, everything is going to be all right. It doesn't matter what you're going through, everything is going to be all right. And you trust and you surrender, and you have certainty beyond logic. And that is gold speaking through all these different elements. And then we have Cooper, the last one, which is the most electrically conductive of all the metals, right? Which I said it before. Now on Friday, you are the conductor. Your integrated identity starts following through. Everything you create without resistance. That's why in the 7 days activation, I take you day by day. And day by day, we're going to be working with one layer, with one plane, with one planet, with one metal, with one chakra. One activation that is going to help you understand the energy so that you can move towards. And it's not something that you need to be redoing it and redoing it and redoing it, because again, there are codes that they were always there available to us. And what we do is we simply build a channel so that you can be dancing with the divine, so that you can activate the divine essence, gold and God within. Now, we're moving into one of the most intricate parts, and it has always been there, and this is what I call the laws that God has given to us. They come from the Hermetic tradition, emerge from the synthesis of Greek and Egyptian wisdom. The Kybalion, which probably some of you have heard about it distills these teachings into 7 universal laws that operate at every level of reality. Now, these are the laws that God simply is saying, if you understand this, and if you learn to operate through them, I'm going to be speaking directly through you every single day. And understanding them does not give you control. Understanding them gives you the ability to be able to surrender intelligently and to know what you are surrendering to, when you are surrendering. So the reason why this dance has been, like a very difficult dance all along, where you have not been enjoying, now these divine laws make God move through you so that you can move with God. And we have 7 different laws that, for the time being, I'm not going to be able to go deeper into each one of them, but this is where everything gets activated. Mentalism, which talks about the all is mind, it says that everything exists in a manifestation of consciousness. And consciousness traces back to the mind of God. Now, your outer life, your reality, what you're experiencing is simply just an expression of what is happening here within. Because it is about changing your consciousness, but it is about changing it permanently, not just the 5 minutes that you're chanting affirmations and hoping that God is going to send you the manifestation. It does not happen like that. Here's where we understand, if I am creating 24/7, how do I make sure that I am so connected and tuned with God that I have the resilience and I have the knowing, and I simply know that I can direct my own mind into absolutely everything. So this is not about positive thinking, but this is about the fundamental law, like how everything actually works. And then we have correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. Your relationships, your opportunities, your circumstances are the exact outer correspondences of your inner state. So everything that I am experiencing within, my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings, they are simply reflected back into reality, so reality can mirror me. What the heck is going on in my life? So when you see reality right now, you need to be radically honest and be like, okay, this is my creation. This is how I constantly has been, and it connects to the other law, which is the law of vibration, which says everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. The frequency that you embody is the signal that you broadcast. You cannot fake your vibration. God knows that. That's why He placed all these rules here. Because you need to understand that the fastest way to raise it, the fastest way to move into God's frequency, is to literally moving into His frequency. You need to move out of the broken frequency so that you can move into the new. And then we have polarity. Everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, different in degree. The false self and the true self are the same spectrum. Your true self cannot be born without your false self. Now, alchemy is what helps you to transmute and go smoothly, right? Flowing through it rather than fighting it. You have been fighting all your life and it's tiring. We all know it.